Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another episode of Let's Chat. And now you might want to just ignore all the thunder and rainstorm going on in the background. Or heck, even bask in it, maybe settle into a little ambiance. But anyway, talk about perfect timing, because with me today, making her debut to the Let's Chat series, I am joined today by Miss Bailey Patterson. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's ironic also that we've rain checked this so many times and then the one day we do it is on a rainy day.
Yeah, absolutely. I am still feeling the rain. My hair is covered in rain, so just ignore that also.
Ignore my hair too. No rain excuse, it's just awful. But you know what? The rain checks are all very much valid because you stay super heckin' busy because you did cabaret. Mm-hmm. You are still currently rehearsing for a play. Yeah. And just recently you got recognized by University of Kentucky Human Development Institute.
Yes.
I got it right, yes. For your work on a project, the Disabled Playwright Workshop.
Yeah.
Yes! I remembered all the abbreviations and everything to keep that in my head. So, can you tell me more about what that project really contained?
So, I work part-time for the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute, and part of my job is to work with my supervisor and think about things that we could be doing to advance the mission of HDI, which is to basically provide an excellent life to disabled community members. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, obviously, as an actor, is theater, and especially new works, because that's how we keep theater alive, is we can't just keep doing all the old dead people's work all the time. we have to update stuff from once.
Yeah, there's some living playwrights out there too, so.
Yeah, we gotta keep it moving, gotta keep creating more things. And if you're familiar with theater, if you're not familiar with theater, disability is like just something that's not often talked about in theater, and if it is talked about, it's usually kind of done in a bad way, a stereotypical way. So I really wanted to provide a place for disabled playwrights to write about their own experiences and create those works and work on those works. So hopefully we could add some more works that give authentic portrayals of disabled experiences to the greater theater canon. So for 3 days we had 4 playwrights come in. One from all the way from New York City.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, to Lexington, Kentucky.
Wow! All
the way from New York. And each of them worked on a 15-minute play, and each of them had a director. There were 2 directors, both directors worked on 2 works, which were the full 4 works. And they all had actors come in, and over those 3 days, they got to tweak the scripts and work on and see their work on its feet, and get some edits, and come back Saturday evening, and there was a performance that was open to the community where the works were being read. So for the first time ever, a live audience got to see the plays that these 4 playwrights had written. So it was really awesome.
That is really awesome. Well, you can't go wrong with just like a short play workshop just in general, but to have the disability inclusion and representation there is just a big cherry on top right there. That's awesome. And it's also great that you and just HDI is just kind of taking all these initiatives, this inclusive initiatives, because, we really need that a lot more in the world these days, because there's a lot of unrest, and you could even say, heck, the world's pretty much on fire right now, well, except ironically right now with the rain and all that. But there's just unease and unrest, just with everybody. Everyone's at each other's throats, and I figured this would be a very interesting episode because you are very politically knowledgeable, whereas I'm politically ignorant. So I figured maybe you can bring light to issues or just things you've been focused on, like things that are concerning you, just in general. And I can be like, oh, because I'm a dummy. So
over the last few weeks, something that's been really impactful to my work, and for context, my undergraduate degree is in disability studies, and I'm a master's student of disability studies right now, so that's kind of where my head's at all the time. There's something called the Administration for Community Living, lots of acronyms, and that is the government administration created to enforce the Olmstead decision. Now, the Olmstead decision is a Supreme Court decision that basically gave the ruling that mass institutionalization of disabled people was unconstitutional. Now, let's take it back to the 1900s especially early 1900s, middle 1900s, it was most common for disabled people to live in these congregate settings called institutions, where they basically had no power, had no rights, had no freedom, and that there was a lot of rampant abuse. So after years and years of activism from disabled activists called the deinstitutionalization movement, you get the Olmsted decision, and that's finally the thing that brings it down, and it says, okay, as a nation, we're stepping away from institutionalization. That doesn't happen all at once because the Supreme Court can let down a decision, but that doesn't mean that it goes into effect. So things have to be created, like the Administration for Community Living, to basically protect that decision and execute it. And through the Administration for Community Living, programs like protection and advocacy are funded. Each state has a protection and advocacy. We have one called Kentucky Protection and Advocacy, and they are basically the watchdogs for rights abuses in settings that may be considered institutions, or maybe if they aren't considered institutions, they are the watchdogs for disability rights, and saying, hey, if your behavior starts to look like an institution and you're keeping someone against their will and we are finding like that's unconstitutional, we're the people who will step in, use our legal knowledge as lawyers and put a stop to it. Now, all that context given, in the past few weeks there has been a concerted effort by the current presidential administration to nix the Administration for Community Living and defund protection and advocacy and defund other institutions that protect disability rights and create better outcomes for disabled people, such as University Centers for Excellence in Disability. So that's really big in the world that I'm in right now. Everybody's like, everything is getting cut, we're losing our funding. How are we going to protect disability rights? How are we going to ensure that institutionalization doesn't become the norm again? So that's a big thing.
Oh my gosh, like, when you were, like, giving the context for it, I was like, that is a really good thing that we have, but, like, that's not only troubling for you in your field, but also I feel like that's just kind of devolving, because isn't the whole point of, like, all this stuff being enacted, the prior stuff, to kind of, like, you know, not only protect the human and civil rights of these disabled people, but to also kind of, like, I guess, sorry if I'm assuming too much here, but like also kind of help reintegrate them or integrate them just in general with society as a whole. Is that kind of play a part in that?
That's kind of a central tenet. It's the idea that every disabled person has the right to live in their community and not be, for example, shipped off to one of the institutions that was big in Kentucky that I have a lot of family ties to, wildly enough. I've been doing my research. Is Eastern State Hospital used to have been Eastern State Lunatic Asylum. So, for example, my great-great-great-great-grandmother or something like that, she was the mother of, I think, 13 children.
Ooh.
And at some point they decided she was not acting correctly for whatever reason, and instead of getting her help where she lived in her home in Jabez, where I live, they shipped her off to Eastern State Lunatic Asylum at the time, which is in Lexington. And so she lived in a congregate setting with other individuals there, and she died about 3 days after she was admitted to Eastern State Lunatic Asylum.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. As a result of negligence, I assume? Or
it's hard to really say because the records that they kept were very minimal. It listed her name. The records that I looked at was like a photocopied ancient document, like not ancient but like really old, like it was disintegrating definitely. And it was written in pen, like her name, the date she was committed, the date she died, and then something about like spastic fits, I think, was the cause of death. So seizures, probably.
Oh my gosh, how old was she at the time?
She couldn't have been older than 50. She was a young, by today's standards, woman. I mean, she had 13 children, so she'd lived a lot of life.
Yeah.
That was kind of the norm back then, is if you lived in a rural area, you had 13 or so children to help with your farm work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the point is, it's better not to ship people off for various circumstances into some random hospital that may have abuse going on, and to help disabled people, support disabled people to live in the communities that they grew up in, because everybody has a right to be with the people that they love and the people that love them, and to go shopping and to go see movies and go and live a life that is directed by their own desires.
No, exactly. Because like when you're talking about these institutions, I immediately think that period of asylums and, of course, the renowned and infamous abuse they had there, and it's kind of scary that things are just kind of stepping back to just the idea of sending someone off to an institution, like if it's like warranted, like trying to think, because like I don't know, I feel like they need to have better restrictions, but also like not devolve back to that asylum period at all. Like your grandmother, for instance, that was definitely a very extreme case there, just for having 13 kids. Like, what the heck? And why is it really anyone's business? Like, they're not like out terrorizing the town or anything, and she's not doing any harm. This middle-aged woman, and why would people care? Like, I know you said it's on the younger end, but also that's an older age, and it's kind of thinks like, what harm is she bringing to the community, and why do we need to bother to send her to an institution? Like, it's all very pointless.
Yeah, it's all very pointless. I mean, there are like theories as to why there are greater political goals for this. One of the bigger theories, like within the field of disability studies, is that because disabled people in certain circumstances aren't able to contribute to the workforce, then they are viewed by the system as disposable. So that's one of the things that like people who are disability advocates today are like trying to change the narrative on, is just because someone can't work a job or can't work a job in the same way other people might work a job, that doesn't mean that we get to just ship them off somewhere.
Yeah, that doesn't make them any less human just because they're not an asset or anything. That is awful. You know, just from, like, we could talk about just the government as a whole, which through personal circumstances I won't get into, I've learned more and more each day that our government, unfortunately, kind of runs more off, like, profiting from the misery of others, sad to say. Which I know is a very broad statement, and we can expound upon that, I'm sure, for days. And I think you gave a very good example. Government making decisions for these disabled peoples and deeming if they are useful or not useful, and then like kind of throwing them to the side. The same could be same with our jail system, because a lot of misfortune there. But the thing is, I've learned that it's just black and white to them. They do not look at context or circumstances. There's rare cases they do. That's when like social work and stuff like that gets into play. But even if it's just like minor misdemeanors and stuff, I won't go into specifics of, but just like, you broke this technicality, we're gonna throw you in the jail, make you pay all this. But then once you see the inner workings of it, you see like, oh, just because so-and-so broke this technicality, it's fueling so many government worker jobs, and it's all at the suffering and misery of a person, whether what they did was good or bad. In a lot of cases, it is bad, and I can see it being warranted, but gosh, I guarantee there's so many people out there that are just a victim of circumstance and really bad timing and got caught breaking this technicality, whether it's a moral one or not, and at the end of the day, so many government workers profit from it.
Yeah, it's really wild. And thinking about like prison systems, like something we study often within like the social sciences is the school to prison pipeline, which is basically the idea that people, I mean especially black people, brown people, disabled people, are receiving authoritarian educations and are not getting the educational support that they need, and are therefore they're labeled as, you know, the bad kid, the kid that acts out, and they keep just going down this pipeline of no one steps in and intervenes and says, hey, like I'm going to see you as a person who's worthy of support. And prison is a likely outcome of people who are marginalized in some way, not receiving the support they need, and then marry that with the bias of the people making the arrests, and you get hugely disproportionate rates of black, brown, mentally ill, disabled people in prison. It's wild to think about.
That's jarring to think about. And I also, I've thought about before the school to work pipeline, because really if you think about it, I feel like the biggest point of school is of course to get you into a career and field of interest, but at the end of the day, there's a reason you wake up early and work on like a set schedule through Monday and Friday. They're like programming like these developing kids to be prepared for a full-time work life. And those people out there that you described there, they don't get those equal opportunities as others that, wind up in that working pipeline. And so then they're not deemed as an asset, I guess, to our modern day standards. And then as a result are discarded, whether it be being homeless or the jail system, which is just an easy throwaway. And gosh, I'm getting more steamed about this than I thought I would have.
No, I mean, these are real things, and they're very upsetting to think about. And I mean, it's a good thing that people who care are willing to have the conversations and talk about it.
I know, and I'm really bad because I've already owned up. I'm very politically ignorant, and I know there's a slew of people out there that would hang me just for saying that, because I know there's the expression silence is violence, and I'm definitely I understand that expression, but to an extent, whereas I'm ignorant, it's more so from my perspective, I'm trying to stay out of a fight that doesn't involve me, more so the two-party system, which that's another conversation of its own. I stay out of that. I'm my own, independent, libertarian. So I stay out of that fight, so I just choose not to inform myself, and really I should, because I'm kind of I'm guilty that, I am privileged, I'll admit that, so I'm bad about, if it doesn't involve me, then I shouldn't worry, but at the same time, I need to be way better about, getting involved and kind of advocating and representing these people that may not have a voice, because I don't know, that's as if anybody would listen to me, but
that's fair. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are in this category of they go to work 9 to 5, they have to spend time with their family, and they're not really tapping into the political area. And I think something to think about when you're realizing, hey, maybe this is something I want to get into thinking about more, is there are a million ways to become politically active. Of course, there's the thing we think about as Americans. There's voting. There's campaigning for politicians. But your politics doesn't even have to have anything to do with that. You can donate to causes. You can attend protests or gatherings. You can go to city council meetings. You can check in on your neighbor who just had a baby and needs some extra support and give them some food. You can stop if you see a homeless person on the street and have a conversation with them and ask if they need some water. There are just a million different ways each of us can have an impact on the world that is a political impact, even if it seems very small. But the things really do add up and make our world a better world. So I think people who see themselves as just an everyday apolitical person are still able to make those impacts if they have their heart in the right place. That you should still be able to make those impacts in your day-to-day life, and I have a feeling you probably do. I know you're a good person, so.
Oh, and I'm glad you said that, because what I was thinking, I want to be more involved voluntarily, which, gosh, I was bad about last year. It's okay, you get that New Year's resolution. It's okay, I'm going to volunteer more. Then time slips, you get caught up in your own life and own bad situations, and you forget that. That's just a back of burner thought there that I can get to it if I get to it. It's not mandatory or anything, but I'm glad that you emphasize that even stuff like that, just on a community-based level, can be considered political, volunteering at a homeless shelter.
Absolutely.
Or you don't even just fundraising, donating. I will say with the voter end though, that's also a bit of a mess, because I feel no matter what you vote, you're going to anger some kind of group. And as sad, as ashamed as I am to say, as an American, I feel our candidates just aren't that great anymore.
I agree.
And then there's so many that are just running unopposed. It's what's kind of the point for voting for this? And then, heck, I think going forward for the bigger elections, I'm just going to do right and just write a stick and call it there. Gosh, I think I voted for Kanye when he ran, just because, I knew he wasn't going to win. I'll admit that. But it's just, I don't know, I don't want to anger anybody, but I also want the right person to get it. But at the same time, I'm not seeing it, and it's just, that level is where it's I kind of draw out. Volunteering stuff, all aboard, funding, sharing a post every now and then, bringing attention, just that kind of awareness. All for that. It's easier, and I feel it causes less anger too.
And then I think your experience of feeling helpless when you're voting, and I think that's something a lot of Kentuckians feel. I do. I make myself go and cast the vote. But I definitely get that feeling of does this even matter? Because
is that voter fatigue, or is that something else?
I think that's called voter fatigue, perhaps. But it's just the idea of okay, I live in Russell, like my residential address is Russell County, so I have to vote in a county that's going to overwhelmingly go for the candidate that I'm not going to pick no matter what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yeah, that a lot of people in Kentucky feel like that, and there are a lot of barriers to voting. I think I saw a statistic once, and it may have changed, that Kentucky is the third highest voter suppressed state in the nation. Meaning that there are laws to make it more difficult for certain people to vote, that a lot of, like, voting locations are inaccessible, a lot of voting locations are 45-minute drives away from where any given person may live, like, just wild. There's lots of reasons why the turnout rate might be really, really low in Kentucky, and that's kind of, that's an issue that isn't unique to us, but I mean, feels very Kentuckian to be feeling like that, sort of like, what does it even matter when I go vote?
The illusion of free will. And I just wish more people would, like, kind of step up to the plate. I'm tired of seeing all these old people on the thing. Oh, you know what? I'll say it. Hal Rogers needs to move on.
Oh, I'll say it.
Get out. Which, like, I got nothing against the guy personally. I saw him, side tangent and anecdote here. I went to one of our local Chamber of Commerce meets, and he was there giving a speech. It was awful. Had nothing to do with Pulaski County or even businesses. He talked, I believe, about illegal immigration and abortion. And I'm just thinking, while I'm over here eating my potato salad that's offered, I'm thinking, why?
Why?
But then the next one, the general attorney came, and he did a good job. So that kind of got the bitter taste of him out of my mouth. So, also, another side thing here, which is baloney. So I used to work at a storage unit place that Hal Rogers had units at, but you know what? That guy got so late on his payments. I don't know if he took care of it or someone else did, like a secretary or anything. Super behind. But you know what? And you're supposed to build up these late fees. But you know what? The high up manager is like, "Oh, we overlooked that. We don't want to anger the big man there." I'm like, "Well, he's just another guy," and so yeah, got to see some corrupt politicizing there on just that end. So yeah.
And just think if it were like any Joe Schmo who got laid off at work and was a few months behind on payment, you know that those fees weren't disappearing.
Nope, it's like, nope, we've given you, oh, there you go, whatever. You know what, I was thinking you brought up a thing that was going to be such a good note. I was like, we can end on that, and then it turned there. So I want to wrap up here soon because we may be drawing to time. So can you draw us back to a good note if there is one?
No matter how many bad things are happening in the world, there are always people who are good people, who are doing the work and who are helping. And if you're one of those people who feels stuck and feels like the world is just crashing around you and you can't get out of bed, same, I feel that way also. But look for the people in your community who are the good people who are doing the work, and go make some friends with them. I think that's some good advice.
That I could feel my blood boil a little bit less after that, so thank you for that.
Perfect.
Have you ever thought about going on TED Talk? I think you'd be good at it.
I would love to do a TED Talk. I spoke to someone in my my graduate like pool of like people, and she introduced herself, like, and it's all online, so she introduced herself on a message board and said like, blah blah blah, and I did this TED Talk last year, and I was like, now that's on my bucket list. I've got to do a TED Talk.
TED Talk at some point in life. I have no idea what I would talk about if I went on, but best of luck to you, and I'm glad you're one of those people, what the diamonds in the rough, we'll call them, because there's a lot of rough out there, but the diamonds are still out there. I'm trying to be one, but I don't think the pressure has really compressed me yet to be one yet, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. But of course, it's never too late for anybody, convict, whatever your history is. I hate that convict was the first thing that came up. But just no matter what your circumstances are, there's always hope. I'm sure there's resources out there, whether they're being suppressed or not, but people are trying. People are out there trying, and you should too. So, once again, I want to thank you for coming on and having like a good intellectual conversation about this, because like bringing up politics, you know, it's easy to break out and debate or whatnot, but this felt healthy.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Other than my blood boiling whenever stuff is brought up, but that's just on the world, not on you. But with that said, thank you again for coming on and enlightening both me and hopefully some people out there.
Thank you for listening to me.
And like that, try not to fixate on the bad stuff. Also like, comment, subscribe. That's the shill tie-in right there. But that, of course, is a wrap.